This game was crazy. All right, this game was crazy. In the first half, the Indiana Fever looked amazing. They were hot, on fire. I could have sworn their jerseys was on fire the way that they were balling. Yo, when I say they were shooting the lights out, let's give it up for Lexi. In that first quarter, it was Lexi's game. Can I get a whole yeah? That's what was going on in that first quarter, fam. And she was just completely...
Lexi Hull just set the court on fire in a way absolutely nobody had on their bingo card. With the Indiana Fever already decimated by injuries, she came in like a player with nothing left to lose, and delivered the kind of breakout night that had Fever fans electrified and critics questioning how long this team can possibly keep patching itself together through wave after wave of setbacks. But before diving deeper, let me throw this out there. Was Hull's explosion just a one-off miracle, or are we witnessing the beginning of her rise as a true difference maker in Indiana?
But we're right there. So I think we can head into Sunday's game with a little bit of confidence on competing against anybody.
Drop your thoughts below, because this one's a real debate. Now let's paint the picture. The Fever were already down 4 rotation staples. Caitlin Clark has been shelved since July 15th with that nagging groin issue. Sophie Cunningham sidelined with a torn MCL, Sydney Colson tore her ACL, and Aari McDonald gone with a foot injury. That's brutal enough on its own. Then, against Minnesota, the situation somehow got worse. Chloe Bibby felt pain in her knee during warm-ups and sat out, while Odyssey Sims limped off late in the fourth and didn't return. Added up, 6 players gone. 6, on a roster that was already razor thin. That's not just bad luck, that's catastrophic. And yet, through all that chaos, Lexi Hull rose to the occasion. She didn't look intimidated by the missing stars or the extra responsibility suddenly dumped on her shoulders. From the opening tip, she carried herself like she knew this was her moment to seize. Her first few jumpers? Pure. Her off-ball cuts? Sharp. She wasn't waiting around for chances to fall in her lap. She went hunting for them. That little mental shift was the spark that made everything different. By halftime, Hull had already racked up 18 points.
The defense was there, the hustle was there. I liked everything about what was going on in the first quarter. They were just outplaying the Lynx. They looked really good, right? And then we get to that second quarter. The second quarter, I loved how the entire team turned on fire. I mean, they were on fire, scorching, heating it up.
The kind of scoring load usually reserved for Caitlin Clark or Kelsey Mitchell. Every make fueled her confidence, and that energy bled into her teammates. She sprinted into open lanes, launched threes without hesitation, and made Minnesota's defense scramble just to keep up. Every time the ball went in, Indiana's bench erupted. Fans at home could feel the electricity radiating right through the screen. And here's what made it truly special. Hull's buckets weren't cheap points in garbage time. She scored in the thick of the battle, while Indiana was still toe-to-toe with Minnesota.
5th time in her career as Boston goes backdoor to Hull, working on Williams. Hull gets it.
This wasn't luck, and it wasn't stat padding. This was real high-pressure production when the game was still hanging in the balance. Which raises the question, why has Hull been pushed to the background so often this season? Coach Stephanie White has leaned heavily on Cunningham, Mitchell, and of course Clark whenever she's been available. That's left Hull mostly in a supporting role, but when the roster was stripped to the bone, Hull proved she's capable of way more than just corner spot-ups and hustle minutes. She showed she can be a focal point, even against one of the deepest rosters in the league. After the game, her words summed it up perfectly. Asked about her approach, Hull said, "We're missing people, so everyone's got to do a little bit extra, be more aggressive offensively. That was my mindset going in." That's not someone just logging minutes. That's a player recognizing the weight of the moment and leaning straight into it. Even Stephanie White acknowledged it, praising Hull for being aggressive, for seeking out her own shots, and for refusing to disappear in the background like critics have claimed she does. On this night, Hull flipped the entire narrative. She was the one dictating the tempo, forcing defenders to chase her, and creating opportunities for teammates just by demanding so much defensive attention herself. And the stat line speaks for itself. 23 points on 9 for 16 shooting, 4 made threes, nearly 37 minutes logged. That's not just efficiency, that's carrying a heavy load under pressure and doing it with poise. She didn't look rattled, she looked ready, like she'd been waiting for this exact stage all along.
Unbelievable third quarter from Stephanie White. coming out, once again, I will never back off of this. If you come out flat in the third quarter, if you give up leads in the third quarter, I'm going to question you as a coach. Because what is it are you doing at halftime? It's clear. What happens is the team that's down goes in, they make adjustments at halftime. They come back out. They apply those adjustments. The coach that is winning the game needs to be prepared to be able to make an adjustment to their adjustment, because the adjustment is coming. No, Stephanie White, no, I don't do that. That's above my pay grade.
But here's the frustrating part. As dazzling as Hull's night was, it wasn't enough to paper over the massive gaps left by 6 missing players. Injuries have absolutely gutted this roster. Each game feels like patchwork, with hardship signees like Shea Petty being thrown straight into the fire just to keep Indiana afloat. To her credit, Petty actually gave them 10 points on 3 deep bombs in her debut. But asking her to run an offense cold, without even knowing the playbook? That's a tall order, and it showed. Plays that used to hum with Caitlin Clark initiating now sputtered. Aaliyah Boston fought for position inside, but passes came late or off target. Possessions broke down into rushed jumpers or careless turnovers. By the third quarter, fatigue set in. Rotations lagged. Minnesota smelled weakness and pounced, outscoring Indiana 32-7 in that frame alone, flipping the game on its head. And sadly, this is nothing new. The Fever have developed a habit all season. Strong starts followed by third quarter collapses. Opponents adjust, Indiana doesn't. Fans are already pointing fingers at White for her lack of in-game tweaks, and this matchup was no exception. Minnesota spread the floor, attacked straight-line drives, crashed the offensive glass. Indiana, meanwhile, stubbornly stuck to schemes that weren't working. Now let's talk about Boston. Stat sheet shows 15 points and 6 boards. But for long stretches, she looked disengaged, hanging out near the three-point line instead of planting herself in the paint. Critics were quick to pounce, saying she disappeared for most of the night before waking up with a late scoring burst in the fourth. By then, it was too late. She can't vanish for 3 quarters and then expect to swoop in as the savior. Not when Clark is out, not when Cunningham is gone, not when the rest of the roster is stitched together with hardship contracts. Kelsey Mitchell, on the other hand, did her job, dropping 27 points and 5 assists. She was the steady hand forcing Minnesota to respect her shot. But she needed Boston to be her co-star, and instead, it was Hull carrying the second scoring punch. Great for Hull's confidence, but it highlights just how unbalanced this roster really is. Meanwhile, Natasha Howard had a game to forget. She tried bringing the ball up twice. Both trips ended in disaster. 1 turnover, 1 offensive foul. She looked completely out of place, and at one point, Jessica Shepard flat out dominated her, logging a triple-double with 22, 11, and 11. Shepard looked like the best big on the floor, something that should never happen with Boston and Howard patrolling the paint. Minnesota also got monster nights from Kayla McBride, who scorched Indiana with 29, and Natisha Heidemann, who lit it up off the bench for 17. Every time Indiana tried to claw back, one of them slammed the door shut. That's the difference between a team with depth and a team scraping lineups together with tape and glue. So yes, Hull's explosion was incredible. Mitchell was relentless. Petty gave a surprising boost. But when you're down 6 rotation players, those flashes only go so far. Indiana just doesn't have the margin for error. Not when Boston plays passive, Howard gets exposed, and the coaching staff refuses to adapt. And it doesn't get easier. They face this same Minnesota squad again in just a few days, this time on the road. After that, Seattle, Phoenix, Atlanta, LA, and Vegas, all in the playoff hunt. Without Clark, without Cunningham, without half the roster, Indiana's playoff hopes are shrinking by the day. Still, Hull's performance is the silver lining. She showed she can handle bigger minutes, bigger responsibilities, and still thrive. That matters because if Indiana wants to hang on until Clark is back, they're going to need Hull playing with that same fearless confidence every single night. It also raises a big question for Stephanie White moving forward. Once Clark returns, do you keep giving Hull meaningful touches and keep her confidence growing? Or do you shove her back into a limited role and risk losing this spark? That's a decision the Fever can't afford to mishandle. Meanwhile, Mitchell deserves her flowers. She's carried this team since Clark went down, and she's delivered almost every time. Dropping 27 against Minnesota is no joke, especially when defenses are built to stop you. Her leadership paired with Hull's outburst gave Indiana a fighting chance in a game they had no business being in. But let's be real, the defense is atrocious. They gave up 95 points, and it could have been worse if McBride hadn't missed a couple late open looks. For a coach supposedly brought in for defensive principles, White's schemes just aren't cutting it. If Indiana makes the postseason, it won't be because of defensive stops. It'll be because Clark returns and the team simply outguns opponents. The reality is harsh. This roster feels cursed. Cunningham out, Colson out, McDonald out, Clark out. Now Sims and Bibby join the injury list. That's 6 players gone. No team survives that without breaking. Indiana has fought hard, but the cracks are widening. Even a career night from Hull gets overshadowed by injuries and third quarter collapses. The Fever have shown flashes, but flashes don't win playoff races, and that's the painful truth.